You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Osmanski, a one-timer deflected side of the goal. Alexandrov scores! Hosted
by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
And this episode number 17 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Tower Square in downtown Springfield and their new location in Amherst. And now we are very pleased to announce that we are also sponsored by our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting. They are bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. Founding owners Yolanda Mero and Lola Rios, and doctorate-prepared nurses with over 40 years combined bedside, academic, and leadership nursing experience. Anybody who knows Lola knows that she's been a diehard Thunderbird season ticket holder for a long time, and we're very pleased to welcome them on board. So big thank you to them for getting involved, and we're happy to have them.
Absolutely. It's nice to grow our SRG podcast family, and happy to have YOLO on board.
And we will have some other things as well coming down the pipeline, and maybe some of you have already had us reach out to you a little bit, but we do have some exciting stuff as well with a couple other companies that we've been working with. I don't know if we want to disclose that, or we want to kind of save it and hang on to it.
Let's just say there's things in the works, and by the time this episode drops, we'll be using our social media to big things are coming. Yeah, for SRG, big things, fun things. I think all things that are good for this podcast, good things for the Thunderbirds, and great things for our fans, for you, the listeners. And so just stay tuned for that stuff.
And again, none of this is possible without you, the listener, and all of you that watch, share, subscribe, comment. We keep continuing to grow because you guys are getting involved and following us and contributing. And so it might just be me and Matt sitting here behind the microphones, but literally all of you, none of this. I always say if it wasn't for you guys, we would just be talking to ourselves, and we can do that on our own time. So, so we do really appreciate that. A tough weekend to look back upon, which we obviously will as we head toward 2024, hoping we can turn the page here a little bit as the calendar turns. But I think one of the things we're going to be looking for is sort of the source to some of these issues. And when you're down at least 3 goals in 4 out of the last 5 games, why? What's going on? And you look at the changes that this team had and some of the things we were worried about. What is the impact of Drew Bannister leaving the team? What is the impact of losing a guy like Matt Kessel and losing Mackenzie McEachern, and now you lose Nathan Walker? What kind of trickle down, what kind of effect does that have on the rest of not only the team on the ice, but in the locker room as well? Game planning, strategies, all those things I think are so important. And, I think there's a little bit of a tough road here over the last couple games. So, some good, some not so good. But I don't know, Matt, do you have just kind of an overall feeling about the games this weekend and sort of what happened and why we are where we are?
I don't have the answers. I don't know the why part, but I certainly have the questions, right? We talked about this last week. Even having to constantly come back, 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, whatever kind of hole you're putting yourself into. We kind of challenged the team in last episode to let's see a 60-minute game and not necessarily winning 12-0, but let's not go down early. Let's not put ourselves in a big hole. It's interesting, and it's a bit puzzling to me, because if you look at the last 10 games, this team is 6-2-2. You'll kind of take that, I guess.
Sure.
Well, I guess you will take that.
Absolutely.
But how they've gotten to 6-2-2 has been comeback after comeback after comeback after comeback. And eventually those comebacks, that well runs dry. So I don't want to think it's a bit of fool's gold. I still have nothing but confidence in this team. We know they will never allow themselves to be out of it, but eventually those comebacks run dry, and we kind of saw that maybe Friday, Saturdays, and we'll break down the games individually, but maybe that Saturday game was a bit of these games happen, and maybe a bit of the butt kicking they kind of needed to, all right, this game's over. We've got to find another way to win. I'll take 6-2-2 over any 10-game stretch. Wins are wins, but eventually this team is going to have to play with the lead, and not just for 1 minute, or maybe I'll try to look it up to be exact, but like they had the lead for 3 minutes against Bridgeport, and then they found themselves in a hole, and they ended up losing that game. So, I think we still, at least for me, feel the same way as this next progression in this team's development is consistency, is consistent play from the onset of the first period to that final whistle in the third. And, we saw that Wednesday. I thought that was a great game Wednesday against Hartford. And we just saw, again, falling behind to Bridgeport. You lose in overtime. You pick up a point. That's okay. You put yourself in a hole against Providence, and you can't dig out of this one because Providence is a better team than Bridgeport.
Right.
And I think you said it when we were talking New Year's Eve, right? You have Bridgeport, they're the bottom of the league. And then you have Providence, who's top of our division along with the Thunderbirds, and the same kind of things happen. It's not the common thread is the Thunderbirds, right? You said it much more eloquently than I am, but
well, no, it's true. It's like you play Bridgeport the same way you play Providence. It's not on Providence or Bridgeport. It's on you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Right. I think
look
now
in the mirror,
it's look in the mirror. You turn the page, and you hope. I hope again you can be happy with a 6-2-2 10-game stretch. Absolutely. And good teams find ways to win, but eventually coming down the stretch and getting into the grind of the season, we know how good the Atlantic Division is. I think it's just unnecessary added stress, unnecessary added energy needing to be spent on games just to get back into overtime. Whereas if we, spent a little bit more energy or did a few things a little bit differently earlier in the game, you go up 4-1 against Bridgeport, they're done. They know they are. You're going up against a rookie goalie. You shouldn't have to rely on these late game heroics. Is kind of, I said that last week. I still feel the same way this week.
No, I do. I agree. And I guess my sort of opening take, and without trying to be like the rah-rah guy, I wonder if there's value in getting your teeth kicked in 8-2.
Mm-hmm.
If they lose that game 3-2 in heartbreaking fashion, sometimes that's enough to bring you down. You lose 8-2, you're like, you wake up the next morning like on a full reset. Like,
yeah,
that okay. Like, you take that puck and you bury it in the backyard and never talk about it again. And now you kind of reset, not only personally but as a team. And I wonder if there is value in, again, losing that badly and understanding that, like, these kind of things happen. And even Justin Brazeau from Providence got a penalty at the end of the game. Providence goes down, scores a shorthanded goal. The guy in the penalty box, Bill, says to Brazeau, "Boy, when it's going bad, it really can go bad." And Brazeau said, "Yep, happens to everybody."
Yeah.
And it was even the guys on Providence were like, understood that they're not going to win every game 8-2 against a team like Springfield. And Springfield's not going to lose every game 8-2. These are the kind of things that just hopefully are anomalies. And, it's like, how do you respond? Like, what's the next step? Like, if you come out and you lose 5-1 against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins on Friday, it's going to be like, okay, now we got an issue.
Mm-hmm.
If you come out guns blazing and you can not even blow their doors off, but you can show some consistent play and help you turn the tide. You know what I mean? It's like, I use this example. I worked with a guy who got fired, and it's one thing you get fired from your job. How do you respond? And he then got divorced and then lost his house. And then it's like, okay, well, you let your divorce spiral as opposed to saying, well, something bad just happened. Let me overcome it. Let's try to build ourselves back up again. It's sort of that same mentality to where when these kind of things happen, how do you respond? And, before we sort of get into the bad of what that game was, I do think it's important to recognize that 3-1 victory against Hartford. I think you and I were in agreement that I thought that was their best, most consistent 60-minute game, and it was exactly what we've been asking for. And you didn't need to blow Hartford's doors off. You didn't need to beat them 8-2. A 3-1 win, hard fought. It was 2-1 for a long time. Hartford was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and they held the wall. They held their own. They get the empty netter from Pekka, and then it was icing on the cake for what I thought was an excellent effort all around, forwards, defense, goaltending for 60 minutes.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly. Again, a 3-1 victory over a very good Hartford team who I think I don't really feel as though we've had trouble playing against Hartford, but it's gone back and forth. And a 3-1 victory over Hartford on a Wednesday night is just what I thought this team needed. Personally, one of the reasons why the weekend stung so much was because I thought they played great Wednesday. So we see these glimpses of this is what this team can do. I mean, Hartford, that's a playoff matchup. We saw a playoff matchup against Hershey, and I thought they played. Those were two great games. You have a 1-0 loss and then a loss in overtime. Those games easily could be flipped the other way. And so I had just such a positive. I had such a confident outlook on the weekend. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you across the board, great goaltending, great team win from the first period all the way to the third. I'm trying to pull up now the box score from that game.
Well, I mean, I'll let you do that real quick. It was real nice to get contributions from Abramov, who got the game winner. Yep. And I think something that it does have to be mentioned, and now that we've talked to some of these guys, the officiating to me, especially Wednesday and Saturday, I thought for the most part were really good. And Jim Curtin is a guy that we've seen a lot of here in Springfield. I think calls a really, really nice hockey game. That game against Bridgeport with two refs that I've never heard of, maybe have been in town once or twice. In fact, both of them at one point came up to me and was like, "Hey, what's number 25's first name?" It's like Dylan. Like, like they didn't even know, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
And when somebody like Terreri comes on and talks about the relationships and building them with the players and having this working relationship, I thought that game was so poorly officiated. But I do think that when you look at that Hartford game, and where you're looking at 5 penalties the whole game.
Yep.
I thought both teams played really well. I thought that the goaltending was great on both ends. If I'm correct, there were no special teams goals.
No.
And even the shot total was pretty straightforward. I mean, the only issue that I think Springfield ran into, they outshot Hartford 11-4 in the first period, and they were down 1-0. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can't look at Zarenko and say 1 goal on 4 shots. What's up, pal? I don't even think it was his fault. But again, when you dominate a period, but you come out of it losing, God, that's got to be frustrating. Then they come back in the second, they tie the game, they still outshoot him in the second. And now it's anybody's game, and it's 1-1 going into the third, and you're in the game. And again, we've talked about it. Their most consistent period has always been the third period. Mm-hmm. If they can get there in a tie game against a good team, that means that your first, second periods have gone well. And that's, I think, where the 60 minutes of solid effort stemmed from, was the effort they put in the first period, their second period of not taking the foot off the gas, and then just playing Springfield Thunderbirds hockey in the third period. I think if they continue that recipe, I think they're in good shape. And it's like, I don't know, it's like that in everything. Like I look at basketball, and I think back to like the '08 Celtics, the third quarter, they would dominate the third quarter. Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, they play how they played the first two quarters. The third quarter, they absolutely dominate. And now you're going to the fourth quarter, up 15 or up 12, right? Now all you got to do is defend the wall. It's sort of that same thing where if you can play well up until your benchmark, the rest should be cake. And I thought that's exactly what they did there.
Yeah, and this is a team that is confident regardless of the scoreboard. So, you give up that early goal or middle of the first goal. And then you're right. You're heading in now to intermission. There's not panic in this team. There's almost a sense of, hey, it's only one goal. Let's go out and get a goal. And I think it was like 2 minutes into the second period, Vrana from Duzak and Suzuki score. And it's a back and forth, well-played game. I thought the energy level was there. We mentioned it last week. We just kind of a feeling, a sense of certain players' energy level, just maybe a step and a half behind of what we're accustomed to. I thought everything was there that we wanted to see was there Wednesday for this win over Hartford. And, if you're going into the second intermission, heading into the third period and you're tied again, you're right. You have confidence. It's been their best period. They're playing great defense. They know Zarenko's on. And now it's just a matter of, hey, let's keep plugging away. Let's do our thing. Let's play our game. And then they do it. And Mikhail Abramoff comes up with a big goal. He wins the big hat for the night for the team. And then Pekka with the empty netter. I love seeing empty netters because it just kind of breath of fresh air. But, there weren't a lot of special teams. I will say, I think they only had 2 or 3 power plays. Springfield had 3. Springfield had 3. And we've talked about the struggles. They do struggle against Hartford's penalty kill, and it was a bit of the same. But if you're playing sound 5-on-5 hockey and you yourself, Springfield, you're not putting yourself on the penalty kill. I think there were only 2 penalties called on Springfield. So if you're playing good, solid 5-on-5 hockey, you don't really need those power plays to pick up the slack. But overall, a great team win against Hartford, who we know we'll see a lot of them down the stretch of the season. And, these two teams will be in play in the standings come the end of the season.
And like Dave, the off ice guy next to me, said about Hartford, they had Adam Edstrom at 6'8" on the same line with Matt Rempe, who's 6'7". He said they got 13 and a half foot of guy out there. Going up against Hugh McGing, you know what I mean? It's like, holy smokes. So no, play their game against teams like that. And I think that when we look at the Bridgeport game, I think it was the total opposite. And I do feel, I don't want to sound contradictory, because last episode I talked about how they're not hitting anything. Go out there and hit somebody. Go out there and finish a check. Go out there and impose yourself physically. And they did that, and it did not work. They were not playing their game. Bridgeport got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty pretty much right off the jump in the first period. They had the fight, Tice Thompson against Austin Osmanski. He also got called for interference, which I didn't really like that. I don't know. Maybe I need a replay of that.
Well, it was interesting, and Ryan on the broadcast brought this up. The ref had his hand up, and Springfield had possessed the puck, and they didn't blow the whistle. So Ryan, it throughout the broadcast, and it's kind of like how I saw it too. You kind of felt like it was Bridgeport getting either the instigator or an additional call on top of that fighting. I don't know how. I have no idea how it ended up being Osmanski's additional 2 minutes because again, the ref had his hand up, and Springfield did possess the puck. They hadn't blown the whistle, which led me and Ryan to believe it was a call on Bridgeport. If you don't mind me jumping in here, and
Sure.
I don't like blaming the officials and making excuses like that, but this was one of the more poorly officiated games of hockey I had really ever seen, almost at any level, including high school. There just seemed to be, and I think, at least from my vantage point, from my perspective watching, the Thunderbirds did get out of their game in that second period. And I mean, I was out of my zone as a fan because of the refs. You had Zach Dean getting tripped into the boards. That was a dangerous play. No whistle there. You had a slash on Reese. There were missed calls all over the place. But then when you look at how they called Osmanski for that additional 2 on that fighting, like it kind of set a tone of, hey, no, we're not letting things go. We're going to officiate this tightly. And then it just looked like Bridgeport was playing, I don't want to call them goon squad hockey, but, they were just going around playing free, chop at anything hockey, not getting any calls. And so Springfield seemed to jump into that fray.
Right.
And it just got them totally out of whack in that second period.
Agreed.
And again, we're talking about a team who doesn't care if they're down 5-2. You give up 4 goals in the second period. You're down 5-2. You have the talent. You're kind of toying with them there in that third period. You get those 3 goals in the third, 2 of them on power plays. I feel like this game was kind of a fool's gold game because they really did not play their game. They did not play their style of hockey. I think they got caught up in the poor officiating, and they got caught up in that kind of goon squad style hockey that Bridgeport's playing. And they come away with a point from it. But another puzzling thing question I had about this game was Sam Bitton. He's in the lineup. He starts based on how the previous game with Bridgeport ended with a Springfield win. And there was
Duzak and Helgeson chopping each other in the ribs.
Going right in, the game's already over. The game is over, and you have them almost going at it down the tunnel. I think everybody is anticipating Sam to drop him on that first shift. He doesn't, but I don't think he stepped on the ice again.
No, I don't think so either. And if you're not going to play him, then why is he dressed?
Yeah.
I mean, you're scratching. I don't know if it was Reese or Washcrook, but one of those guys was scratched. And it's like either know what you're getting from the player and play him, or don't play him at all.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that. And in a game where we saw 2 fights, we saw Osmanski and I think it was Wyatt Kalynuk throw down. It's a physical game. There are fights in there, and that's kind of Sam's role. So I was a little perplexed, a little confused by that. But
even if you'd say you don't want to play him, that's fine. And he sits for a period and a half, two periods, and then the game gets chippy.
Yeah,
and it's the third period. Throw him out there.
Yeah.
Let him go smash somebody,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very perplexing when the team needed a spark and he just was sitting there. And I spent a lot of time watching him, and he, to his credit, was very chatty on the bench with his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's very positive and always has something positive to say to the other guys. His not playing to me was very strange. I thought it was very odd. And now what I noticed too is that now you have to take your bottom 6 forward, your bottom 5 forwards, And now you're rotating them all. And now so-and-so's playing with so-and-so. And now this guy's playing with that guy. And now, what, are you the left wing? Am I the right wing? Who's playing center? Like, nobody had any idea. Nobody had a defined role on that either bottom six line.
Yeah.
And again, just play Keane Washbrook, and then everybody has a role. I would have liked to have seen Sam play more minutes and go out there and smash somebody, but that was all very strange to me. Real quick, I just wanted to, before we move on, because the penalty, you were talking about the penalties. Adam Gaudette took a high stick, is bleeding out of his nose, says 2 words to the ref, and gets an unsportsmanlike penalty call. It's like, can you hear the words coming out, but with all the blood dripping into his teeth? Like,
yeah.
And he came to the box, and that's twice he's blown his lid, right? Once he did it in the box, and that time, and I don't blame him. I mean, dude, he got high sticked in the face, gushing. He got to he spent the whole penalty in the penalty box, trying to get the blood to stop out of coming out of his nose, and the immediate reaction is to give him an unsportsmanlike penalty. Like, come on, man! Like,
I mean, I think, and that's a perfect example. I actually meant to highlight that because, that's a perfect example of the officiating losing control of that game.
Yep.
That Gaudette's in the box. That actually was one of their 2 Bridgeport's power play goals. Both teams had 2 power play goals that night, and one of them was this Gaudette penalty. Now, to be fair, I don't know, and I was watching the game on AHL TV. I couldn't tell if it was his stick or a Bridgeport stick. I couldn't tell, but clearly he got hit in the face. He's upset. I can't fathom what is said in that moment where a referee feels like they need to put him in the box. There was no physical contact with a referee. There was no threatening motion towards the referee. He just said something. And I remember watching that, and with my kids sitting on the next to me on the couch, and they're like, well, what? Like, you're not allowed to talk to the ref? And I'm like, he probably swore. And he's like, my 9-year-old kid is like, so he gets put in the box for that?
They swear all the time.
They swear all the time. And that's what I mean.
There.
I mean,
trust me.
You can't tell me if you're going to call that every time they're chirping back and forth to each other. Like, I almost think, a threatening comment towards another player is more, leads to an unsportsmanlike conduct. That seems more imminent of a threat. Hey, I'm going to, I'm talking to my opponent who I'm battling against in the heat of the moment. I see nothing. I don't understand what a player can say trailing a referee, again, not making any physical threat towards him, not moving towards the ref in a threatening way. What could you possibly have said in that moment to put you in the box? I don't know. But again, now, if you're calling the game that way, I don't understand how Zach Dean doesn't draw a penalty when he gets pulled. That's a dangerous play. Reese gets slashed on the arm. I think it was Joey Duzak gets like slew-footed in their zone behind Zarenko. I don't understand how those penalties aren't called. If you're going to call it tight, you have to call it both ways. So again, this is probably the first and hopefully the last time I'm this critical of the officiating, because I don't like to make that an excuse, but it was poor. It was bad.
It's that working relationship thing that Casey Terreri talked about, and knowing and I mentioned that these refs didn't even know some of the players' names. And when you don't have that relationship developed, like, again, if Gaudette had said that to a guy like Terreri or Jim Curtin, that wouldn't have been a penalty. Now, there would have probably been some words exchanged both ways. In fact, maybe you blow a whistle and you blow the play dead and you say, look, you don't talk to me like that. There's something conversated there. But that looked to me like one of those, in baseball where there's a borderline strike call and the batter looks back at the umpire, doesn't even say anything, and then he gets tossed. And it's like, you're throwing guys because they looked at you funny. There was no working relationship between the refs and the teams in that game. And that, I think that's what got Springfield really off its game. And I think that's really what changed the moment. I think once Bridgeport knew, oh, okay, we're playing this kind of game. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
right up our alley. And then they went out there and they did Bridgeport things rather than Springfield, forcing Bridgeport to chase them around the zone, which is what normally happens. So, and a quick tip of the hat to Ruslan Ishakov. That overtime goal was pretty. That was pretty sick.
That
Between
was
the legs, bar down.
That was a good. My kids, they didn't like it. They go, "Oh, that was such a cocky play. He didn't have to do that." I'm like,
That was
"Boys,
sick.
it's not cocky if you can do it, and if you were successful in it, that's skill." And you're right. Tip of the hat to that. There's nothing, you can do as a goaltender there, Subban. I thought, he kind of got hung out to dry a few times in this game, but
Definitely.
all this being said, you get a point.
Yep.
And again, at the end of the day, it isn't tiebreakers of, well, okay, what was your record against Bridgeport? They all count the same. A point is a point. A loss is a loss, and a win is 2 points, no matter who you're facing. So, all that being said, you came away with a point against Bridgeport, and
and we will talk a little bit about letting the goalies out to dry, which I think was a big problem on Saturday as well. But I do just want to mention real quick, the SRG podcast, proudly sponsored by our friends at White Lion Brewing and their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street. Of course, they're right in downtown Springfield at Tower Square, 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Springfield Thunderbirds games. If you're looking for a place to park in that Tower Square garage. They will validate your parking for you. In fact, I was following somebody into the building, Matt, and they said they were talking about parking, and I heard one of the people in the group go, "Oh wait, I heard that they'll validate your parking at White Lion if you park in Tower Square." And it's like, that's a listener, baby. I don't know where you heard it, but you probably heard it from us. So tip of the hat there, but 20 plus beers that they have on tap. And don't forget, if you can't make it there, you can always find their beer in your local liquor store cooler as well. Make sure while you're there, you stop in and get some of the delicious food they have there. A proud local sponsor of the SRG podcast. Make sure when you go to White Lion Brewing, you tell them that the fellas from SRG sent you. And we are very thrilled to welcome the fine folks at YOLO Healthcare Consulting. YOLO Healthcare Consulting offers education, training, tutoring, coaching, and mentoring for healthcare professionals and students. Founding owners Yolanda Mero and Lola Rios are doctorate prepared. They have over 40 years combined bedside, academic, and leadership nursing experience. And they also offer assistance to individuals navigating the healthcare system for long-term care and home care planning needs. Founded right here in Western Massachusetts, YOLO Healthcare Consulting are the ones to contact to help you bridge the gap if you're traversing the healthcare landscape. You can reach out to them at yolo.healthcareconsulting@gmail.com. You can always give them a call as well at 413-627-0609. Make sure you tell them that the guys at SRG sent you. I love the fact that Yolanda and Lola started a company called YOLO. I think that's fantastic.
I love it.
We're really happy to have them on board and part of the SRG family.
I love it. And just another example of what we can do here in this community. We are 413, and we're happy and thrilled to have two other 413 community members on our team with us, with White Lion and YOLO Healthcare Consulting. Speaking of White Lion, I think, my family will be at the game Saturday for their throwback night. So I'm thinking we're going to probably stop at White Lion on the way pregame. I know you'll be busy, but yeah, I'll try to have a Thunder Boom for you.
Yeah, throwback one or two for me if you could.
Yeah.
So if this is the part where you want to turn off the podcast because you don't want to listen to the Bridgeport game, or the Providence game, don't worry. We won't spend a ton of time on it. However, there are some good things to come out of it. But also after, we're going to talk a little bit about the waiver situation. I know people on social media had a lot of questions about McEachern going up and down, Nathan Walker going up and down, Matt Kessel going up and down. And again, as two people who have never played professional hockey or anything close to it,
yeah,
I do have a rule book somewhere. They give me a rule book game one, and I'm like, hey, thanks. And I throw it away. It's not away. It's somewhere in this mess in my office. But we'll try to navigate the waiver process and situation as best we can, and chances are we're completely wrong, but hey, you never know, we might be right. So we are going to talk about that coming up. But the Providence game. This is the first game without Matt Kessel, as he was called up, and much of the same. Didn't take long. I mean, it really didn't take long for Providence to hop out to a 2-0 lead. They outshoot Springfield 13-5. And I look at Providence scares me because I think them more than anybody else have high-end prospect talent. And I know Georgi Merkulov got called up to Boston. Fabian Lysell to me is deadly. I mean, I just think he is so good. And then they sent down Jesper Boquist, who is an NHL player. Patrick Brown is an NHL player. Ian Mitchell is an NHL player. Brandon Bussey, I think, is one of the best goalies in the AHL. And now you're in a 2-0 hole. And, despite what happened with her, that's just such a mountain to overcome against a team like this. And not only did they not overcome it, but it spiraled quick.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much carryover from the Bridgeport game, how much frustration and aggravation carried over, but from my vantage point, there was some carryover. You had two quick goals in the first, I think 2 minutes apart. I'm sorry, 1 minute apart, actually. The first goal is at 3:44. The second goal is at 4:44. So exactly a minute apart. You had 8 penalties called on Springfield, which as of late, I know the team started off putting themselves on the PK a lot. As of late, I thought Springfield kind of turned that around, but I felt like I was watching a frustrated, aggravated team. And it snowballed from there. There's not a lot to get excited about. 1, 2, 3, 4 goals in the second period for Providence, 2 by Springfield. And again, you're kind of playing with that fool's gold. You go into second intermission and all right, well, hey, it's 6-2. Can we do it again? And I will never count this team out, but that well has run dry, and you're only getting 4 shots in the third. It kind of just felt like the team knew. We talked about this at the top of the episode. Wasn't our night. It's not our night. Let's just get out of here. But I know one thing you wanted to talk about. Even in this third, this team seemed like they just wanted to get out of here, yet you had Washcrack fighting Lysell.
Yeah, I really didn't like that. And it's not just because it's Fabian Lysell and I actually really like the player. He doesn't fight. He doesn't fight. He doesn't hit. But he's chippy.
Mm-hmm. Like every good player is. Like
I would call him confidently mouthy. So an example last year, him and Tyler Tucker go in the corner, and Tyler Tucker basically sits on Lysell in the corner. And so Lysell starts throwing him some shots. So they each get penalties. Lysell comes to the box and he's like, "The only way you can stop me is to sit on me." And I'm like, whoa. Like, talking about a 19-year-old kid who's 5'10", talking to Tyler Tucker, like, the only way you can stop me is to sit on me. And even after this one, he says to me, he goes, "Did that guy get a game or 10 minutes? I said, "He got 10 minutes. So he'll play again?" "Yeah, he'll be back." "Good." I'm like, whoa, good. Like, I don't know what you're going to do about it. I'm sure somebody else is going to do something about it. But Providence was very much chasing Kean Washcrack the minute he came back out there. And that's, it wasn't even so much about the fight with Lysell. It's what you did to Providence. You ticked them off big time. Yeah. And they use that as a rallying cry to pop in another freaking 6 goals on you. So bad spot, bad timing, bad matchup. It's one thing to fight him, but the best punches Washcrack got in were when Lysell was already on the ice. So it's like, I always hate the post. Once you get the guy down, he's down. You don't need to throw 5 more shots till the ref comes. This isn't the UFC. So I thought that was a bad spot. I thought it was a bad omen. And I thought all it did was really get Providence more engaged in the game than they already were. So
that fight kind of reminded me of the Mackenzie McEachran drawing that slew footing call in, was it Bridgeport? Was that Bridgeport?
I think it was like Lehigh Valley. I think it was like a Lehigh
Yes,
Valley.
you're right. You're right. You're right. Thank you. So against that late in the third period against Lehigh Valley, Mackenzie McEachran is, poking his stick a little bit and ends up drawing that slew footing call. He doesn't get called for it. He did, second guy in. To me, and hearing you talk about Lizell, it kind of looked like Lizell, he knew what he was doing. He had a frustrated Washcrack in there, and he kind of did hold him. And
Lizell definitely did. He grabbed him right around the neck.
He didn't drop his gloves, but that's what he just did. He's like, yeah, I'm going to hug you. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And Washcrack got the 5 minute plus the misconduct. So, win for Lizell there. And you're right. All that did was kind of, no pun intended, but poke the bear a little bit. And it'll be interesting. We've got a home and home this weekend coming up against Providence. So, again, it was 8-2. I don't feel like there will be any carryover physically from that. I mean, these are two physical teams anyway.
I mean, you never know.
But,
those guys hold grudges.
If you're Providence, but if you're Providence, you just dropped 8 on them. So I feel like you're kind of feeling, they'll be coming in Saturday with their chests puffed out a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see more fighting, but I think that's because it's Providence and Springfield anyway. I don't think they'll be, well, maybe they will. I don't think they'll be targeting Washcrack for this. They got 8 on us,
I mean, they have guys. I mean, Dan Renouf was wearing a cage, and he was ready to fight. I think he was ready to rip the whole cage off to go after Washcrack. But Vincent Arsenault, the other big guy, Abati will fight. Trevor Kuntar, I think, is like a top 5 in the league in penalty minutes. Brazo will fight. So, I mean, they unlike Springfield, have a lot more guys that'll go. So, I think that they're going to not necessarily pick fights. They're going to go ahead. You want to pick on someone your own size. You want to go after Lizell? Why don't you come after 6'3" Dan Renouf? I think that option is something that they'll definitely lay on the table. So, but I do think by the end of it was, I think both teams just wanted to get the hell out of there. And I was expecting the third period to be this physical bloodbath. I was like, it's going to be one or two things, either a physical bloodbath or they're just going to try their best to run out these entire 20 minutes so everybody can go home, which it was more the latter than the former.
Which it was more that. Yeah.
Then again, you can't give up shorties. And again, the biggest thing to me between the Bridgeport game and the Providence game was the inability to protect and clean the front of the net. And we've talked about this, that especially with Subban and Zarenko, they don't ice the puck very much, meaning when the puck comes to them, they don't put a glove on it and take a face off. They usually leave juicy rebounds. And again, we talked about with Luke, that we had more stuff these 2 games in our reads and stuff. It's our off ice production we couldn't get to because these goalies can't cover the puck and take a whistle. That's when I talk about the friggin' these reads that I have. So those rebounds were there, and there was no Thunderbird player there to control the front of the net. And I think that's how a lot of the greasier goals got scored. I think that's why the shot total was as high as it was for Providence, because the defense really not only left the goaltending out to dry, but didn't play to the strengths and weaknesses of the goaltending. And I think Providence played it perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, 2 out of the 3 power play goals for the Bruins were just that. I think one of them was a nice back and forth, moving the puck side to side, and just had Zarenko out of position. But I think the other 2 were just that, where it was Springfield couldn't clear the puck. They didn't have, strong enough presence, a physical enough presence in front of the crease, and they paid the price for it. So so I'm ready to close the book on that.
Let's move on from that one. And like we said off the top, it's let's hope it's something that they can build off of and not bury even deeper. But I like you said, I have confidence in the morale and the locker room of this team, and I think they'll use it for good rather than bad. So
agreed.
I think the last thing we had to touch on, this is a question that was brought up by Angela Circosta, I believe, on Facebook in one of the Thunderbirds groups. And it was basically the waiver process and how this all works and how come guys can get sent down? How come guys can get called up? When do they have to clear waivers? I've been doing a little bit of research trying to figure it out. I know you have, Matt, too. And I think we've kind of come to the same conclusion a little bit.
Yeah. So this is my understanding of the waiver system. It is very complicated, but once at the beginning of this season, you had McEachern, Walker, Rosen, and Kessel all cleared waivers. Once they did that, they were then reclaimed by the Blues, assigning them to Springfield. So these players have gone through the waiver system, claimed by the Blues, based on their two-way contracts, can then go back and forth, up and down. I think it's very similar to a Tyler Tucker last year, Alexandrov going up and down last year, Jake Neighbors. What could have been eligible to play for the Thunderbirds last year in the playoffs had he not been injured at the deadline period, because he was injured and put on the IR or whatever list they call it, right? He wasn't eligible to come down. If you go back 2 years, Charlie Lindgren, very similar thing. The Blues are out of the playoffs. They send Charlie Lindgren right down, and he's able to play. So as I understand it, these players, McEachern, Walker, Rosen, Kessel, will not have to clear waivers. I also, guys like McGing, again, as I understand it, given their age and where they are in their careers and their contracts, McGing not making that sort of the roster prior to that final cut, I think he's again assigned to the Blues, and a two-way contract allows him to go up and down without any penalty incurred by the Blues or the Thunderbirds. So I don't believe there's any issue or concern about any players having to clear any waivers in the season. I think that point has sort of already kind of cleared. They've already cleared the waivers. Right. So once you clear the waivers,
you're clear.
Nobody else claimed you. So you're clear. The Thunderbirds reclaim you. They assign you to Springfield. You're on a two-way contract. You can get your call up. You get your pay. There's no penalty incurred by the Blues or anything like that, because they are two-way deals. So they should be good. And again, that's how I understand it. And I know, Steve, I think you reached out to Patrick Williams. So if he's able to shed any more insight to that, we could try to share this on our social media platform.
Yeah,
but that's how I understand it.
Yeah, no, me too. I think once even when you look around the rest of the division, Louis Domingue in Hartford has been up and down and up and down, and he's on a one-way deal. Johnny Brodzinski in Hartford, same thing. Riley Nash, same thing. You look at Providence, and it's been Jesper Boquist, it's been Ian Mitchell, it's been Connor Brown. I believe it's Connor Brown. So, all Jacob Zaboral. So all these guys have had these situations where they've cleared waivers, and now seemingly like every week they're going back and forth. So yeah, you're right. I think once you clear, you're good. I do think that there are weird things in there, based on your age, maybe, or based on how much money you're making or your years of experience. I do think there's a lot of convoluted stuff in there too, but I think the basic crux of it is exactly what you said. And, I do think maybe that's why they're more willing to call up the guys like McEachern and Kessel, because these guys have already cleared. Yeah. So they're like, we know we can safely call these guys up, send them down. Matt Kessel, we can call them up, send them down without any issue. And talking about how convoluted it is, there was a roster freeze at Christmas, a holiday roster freeze. In the middle of the holiday roster freeze, Mackenzie McEachern got sent down.
Yeah, and then brought right back up.
Right, and it was like it was a paper they call them just paper transactions. He didn't really have to get on a plane and fly to Bradley. It was just a paper transaction, and they do that for financial purposes that I'll never really be able to wrap my head around. But it's the same kind of thing. You always have to futz with the money a little bit. You got to kind of meet certain salary cap compliance things that I don't again, I'm a word guy, not a math guy, so I can't for the life of me figure that out. But I do think that's the basic gist of it, is that once you clear, you're clear, and then the rest of the season, if there's roster movement, you're a lot freer to move guys around than say you are in October. And I think that's why, like you said, everybody does. Even like early October, Carolina did the same thing with
Coughlin, yep.
They called him up and sent him back down, and now he's free to go. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, like with a guy like Suzuki, because I don't think Suzuki was coming off an injury. I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe he did, but I don't think he actually had to go through waivers because of his injury. So I almost feel like once they call him back up, he's going to have to clear to come back down. So maybe that's why they're just like, well, we'll keep you down to an agent.
That could be.
You know?
Yeah, because he was he did start the season injured.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think we talked about it too when we first kind of caught wind of him coming down. We were even unclear if it was, a conditioning stint, if what the case may be. But, I don't know. It is a very complicated, and that's why we're not GMs of of any team other than my fantasy team on NHL 24.
But even a part of it, like, I think if you're on, like, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, right? Like, let's say Mackenzie McEachern is on a contract for $1.5 million, right, in the NHL. If he gets sent down, he's only getting $750,000.
Mm-hmm.
So to meet cap compliance, they'll send him down on a paper transaction because now their cap number looks different because Mackenzie McEachern's making whatever 3/4 of what he was supposed to be paid. So a lot of it is just numerical popsicle headache kind of stuff.
Yes.
and so the good news is that for us, hopefully these guys are free and clear to move back and forth. And it looks like Mackenzie McEachern will be here on Friday. So I think it'll be nice to have another big body, that an experienced guy who's been around. If you're going to lose a guy like Nathan Walker with his experience, which, by the way, his family was in town. I believe I assume they all came from Australia. His parents were in the building for at least the last week or so. I wonder what their travel plans are. Are they now heading to St. Louis, or are they heading back to the Aussie? I don't know, but it was cool to see him and his family. They were always in the penalty box, and his wife and his parents were super nice, and the kids are adorable. And they had their little number 12 daddy jerseys on, and they were super cute. So
maybe that was part of the plan. Hey, I've got my family over from the land down under. Bring him into St. Louis. I don't know. Who knows? But I wish him luck, and Kessel's up there. And, for our sake, I hope we see Walker and Kessel back. But also, like we said all the time, we want success for these guys. And I love seeing them do their thing up in St. Louis too. So
me too. Gives me a reason to watch St. Louis Blues hockey.
Yeah.
So we do appreciate everyone listening. And just a reminder, this episode is brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing, Tower Square in downtown Springfield, and their new location in Amherst. And now by our friends, we are happy to have on board YOLO Healthcare Consulting, bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. You can reach out to them at 413-627-0609. You're right. I feel like going into this episode, I had such a depressing feeling because of the Bridgeport and Providence game, but really at the end of the day, they got 3 out of 6 points.
Yep.
They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. So, it's not all bad. I mean, look on social media here, you think people are losing their minds, but in reality, we're all right for now. This is a big weekend here coming up.
Big 3-3. First one is Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and we've talked about them, and I'll be brief, but I think so far this season the T-Birds are 1-1-1 against the Penguins, and let's see if it's an evenly matched team. I think even standings wise, there's 1 point that separates Springfield and the Penguins, but I think you've got to start this game on the right foot. You really, to put that 8-2 drubbing behind you, you've got to come out and get a win here. You've got to get 2 points. It's a 1st and 3. The first 2 games are at home, and then they finish with a home and home with Providence on Sunday. So big weekend of hockey.
Yeah. Providence is in second with 38 points. You're in fourth with 36. Wilkes-Barre's on your tail with 35. You're going to play both of those teams in 3 games. Getting points is a massive priority here, and not losing huge in regulation, not losing at all in regulation. I mean, if you're going to lose, you better do it in a shootout. just based on
Yeah.
the standings.
I totally agree, and I would expect this team to be ready for the weekend. We haven't had a 3-3 in a while, and so I would expect this team to be ready. And I expect the Thunderdome to be rocking. We've got throwback games Saturday, so it'll be your Springfield Falcons. I'll be in attendance. We have a game. My kids have a basketball game Friday night, but we will be at the Thunderdome on Saturday, and we've got to bring the noise. Got to get this team, show this team that we still have their back, and I have nothing but confidence that they'll perform for us. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, let's go, T-Birds.